When the reviving Pittsburgh Steelers traveled to New York's Shea Stadium last Sunday, they took with them some impressive conference rankings. Number 2 in overall defense, number 1 in overall offense, number 1 in passing. Two good reasons for the high rank in passing were two crafty wide receivers named John Stallworth and Lynn Swann, number 88. Terry Bradshaw did not enjoy one of his better days, but touchdowns by Swann and Stallworth gave Pittsburgh the edge in the second quarter. Walt Michaels' Jets refused to be intimidated, and New York came back to tie the score behind the unlikely combination of number 17 rookie quarterback Matt Robinson and rookie running back Scott Dirking, number 25, who also rushed for more than 100 yards. Unfortunately for the joyous young Jets, the mistakes of youth would eventually turn the game against them. A missed handoff set up the lead touchdown for Pittsburgh, and despite getting generally good protection against the Steeler rush, which was missing both Joe Green and L.C. Greenwood, New York quarterbacks were charged with no less than 5 interceptions. After the Steelers intercepted Matt Robinson 3 times, Richard Todd replaced him and threw 2 more interceptions on his first 2 passes. Todd then settled down and led the Jets to a late touchdown, which brought New York close, but not close enough, as the Steelers hung on to win 23-20 and edged closer to their annual place in the playoffs. Meanwhile, in Cincinnati, the weather turned the usually docile Bengals into a new breed of cat, as the formerly toothless Cincinnati offense bowled over every obstacle in sight. Ken Anderson had thrown only 4 touchdown passes all season, but bombing early before the weather got worse, Anderson suddenly got hot against the New York Giants' usually tough defense. Number 82, Billy Brooks, took Anderson's first pass of the day for an easy touchdown. And then Anderson's second pass of the day went for another touchdown to Billy Brooks, last year's number 1 draft choice from Oklahoma. In all, Ken Anderson threw 4 passes in the first half, 3 of them for touchdowns. The third went to rookie tight end Jim Corbett from Pittsburgh, as the Bengals rolled to an easy win and stayed within 1 game of the first-place Steelers in the AFC Central. Inside the Houston Astrodome, the climate was more pleasant, but not for the Kansas City Chiefs. The Oilers remained tied with Cincinnati by dominating the Chiefs defensively as well as offensively. Houston's opening play was a spectacular touchdown by Ken Burrow, who had 2 for the day. Dan Pastorini tossed a third to his ultra-dramatic running back, Don Jaws Hardiman, number 30. The Oilers were also dominant on the ground as number 26 rookie Rob Carpenter broke loose for 149 yards, 77 of them on this play. The last few weeks, the Oilers have enjoyed themselves against Seattle and Kansas City, but now comes the make or break part of their schedule. Denver this week, followed by Cleveland and then Cincinnati. And even if they win all 3, they still have to hope Pittsburgh loses twice in order to make the playoffs. It looks as though they'd better enjoy their celebrations while they can. In Cleveland's Municipal Stadium, where freezing winds whip in from Lake Erie, the weather seemed custom-made for the hometown team, rather than their guests from Southern California. But the Los Angeles Rams seemed unfazed by the bitter conditions, and on their first series, John Cappelletti scored the only touchdown of the game. The rest was left to the strong Ram defense, which hounded Cleveland quarterback David Mays all day. In his second starting assignment since replacing injured Brian Sipe, Dr. Dave, who originally came to the Browns as a free agent kicking candidate, suffered 3 interceptions as Cleveland absorbed only its 5th shutout in 367 NFL games. The 9-0 victory was Los Angeles' 3rd whitewash and 4th straight win, as they maintained a 2-game lead over Atlanta with only 3 to play. This was a big game for both teams. In the tightly knit AFC Central, Cleveland dropped out of a first-place tie with Pittsburgh. With 3 losses in their last 4 games, the Browns are barely breathing. Last week's other shutout occurred quite naturally in Tampa, Florida, where the Buccaneers ran smack dab into the league's stingiest defense. The Atlanta Falcons remained in contention in their division by racking up their 5th shutout of the year in their 17-0 win over Tampa Bay. It was the 25th consecutive loss for John McKay, who called his team's effort the worst in our history. Former holdout Dan Fouts, who last played football in December of 1976 and said he would never again wear a Charger uniform, was the starting quarterback for San Diego in the Kingdome. For most of the game, Fouts' return was overshadowed by the brilliance of Seattle's young lefty Jim Zorn, who passed for 291 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Chargers' #1 ranked pass defense. In the third quarter, Zorn threw his longest scoring pass, 74 yards, to a wide-open Steve Largent, number 80, and the Seahawks took a 21-13 lead over San Diego. Then Fouts, who hit on 19 of 26, brought his team back with a strike to Charlie Joyner at the start of the fourth quarter. 3 plays later, defensive end Leroy Jones, number 68, hit Zorn in the act of passing, and number 71, Fred Dean, grabbed the ball in midair and scored. The 14-point barrage within the space of 2 minutes gave San Diego a 30-21 lead, and the 9-point cushion was necessary, for Seattle came roaring right back on a long drive that ended with Zorn's touchdown pass to rookie David Sims. It cut San Diego's lead to merely 2, but with a full 7 minutes remaining, Fouts and the Charger attack were at their best, controlling the ball for the duration on a 14-play drive that ran out the clock. The narrow 2-point victory made Tommy Prothrow's return to the Pacific Northwest, where he coached at Oregon State, a successful one. Prothrow not only rediscovered a long-missing quarterback, his Chargers remain mathematically alive in the race for the wild card berth in the American Conference. On Thanksgiving Day in St. Louis, Miami quarterback Bob Griese did for eyeglasses what Clark Gable did for ears. He made them quite fashionable. Peering through windshields, all Mr. Griese did was throw 6 touchdown passes in leading his team to a 55-14 romp over the Cardinals, who were busy giving up the most points in their 58-year NFL history. On the feast day, bespectacled Bob was 15 for 23 for 207 yards. 3 of the touchdowns went to wide receiver Nat Moore, number 89, as Greasy set a team record and came within 1 of the NFL's single-game record for scoring passes. The long toss of the day was a 37-yard strike to tight end Andre Tillman. To give the Cardinals their due, their secondary has been riddled by injury, but it would have taken a concentrated flak barrage to stop Greasy, as he made Thanksgiving truly thankful for the 26 teams that weren't playing the Dolphins. Now with their record at 8-3, Miami is focusing in more sharply on the playoffs. And every kid quarterback in America is saying, "But Mom, just because I have perfect vision doesn't mean I can't at least try glasses, does it?" Meanwhile, in Washington, the Dallas Cowboys and the Redskins were playing their usual commemorative game. What were they commemorating? Why, the Battle of the Little Bighorn once again. To say there's no love lost between these teams is like saying World War II was a fairly unfriendly endeavor. While they did play some football last Sunday, the scoring was not overabundant. The Staubach hookup with Drew Pearson to the 1 was negated by a Cowboy fumble and Redskin recovery on the next play. Eventually, the Cowboys did get into the Redskins' end zone twice, this time on a Staubach strike to Golden Richards, which sealed a 14-7 victory and all but eliminated George Allen's aging tribe from a shot at that happy hunting ground in New Orleans. And after 2 straight losses, the Cowboys at last seem to be back on the right horse and once again riding toward Cajun country. Here they come, the best 3-8 team in pro football, said one sportscaster of the Philadelphia Eagles. While only one other team has that record, the intent of the message is true, because despite that 3-8 slate, the Eagles played very tough against the Patriots last week in Foxborough, Massachusetts. Especially tenacious was the defense, which has been improving all year. However, near misses, as always, cost the Eagles a wing and a leg. The Patriots were not intimidated by rough play. Even when Eagle middle linebacker Bill Berge, number 66, tried to knock him off stride and then measure him for a turtleneck shirt, New England tight end Don Hasselbeck, number 80, remained imperturbable and just continued on about his appointed rounds. And as has so often been the case, Philadelphia's appointed rounds did not include enough visits to the opponent's end zone. For most of the afternoon, the Patriots defense, led by N. Tony McGee, number 78, was doing a Polish polka with quarterback Ron Jaworski. In the end, 2 Steve Grogan touchdown passes, this one a 64-yarder to Stanley Morgan, gave New England a 14-6 win and kept their thinning playoff hopes alive. Up in Green Bay, as they say, the game started and ended in a blizzard, with Minnesota trying to hold on to a 1-game lead in their division but falling behind when Packer quarterback David Whitehurst ran through the white stuff for an early score. Viking quarterback Bob Lee dared only 8 passes, but one that spun through the flakes for 40 yards to Sammy White proved to be the margin of victory. Whitehurst threw the ball 15 more times than Lee, yet completed just one more pass, but it was a big one. A 34-yarder to Bert Askson that brought Green Bay to the Viking 5-yard line. Askson tried to snowball into the end zone, but unfortunately could not. And the always clutch Minnesota defense, Bobby Bryant especially, saved the Vikings once more as their 13-6 victory preserved a one-game lead in the NFC Central Division. A few days earlier, in a more hospitable climate, indoors in the Silverdome, Detroit and Chicago slugged it out, the winner to stay within a game of Minnesota. With so much at stake, bodies were flying. Throughout the first half, the Lions chewed up Walter Payton, who could spit out just 20 yards as Detroit clung to a 7-0 halftime lead on a 16-yard pass from Greg Landry to David Hill. Hill has replaced Charlie Sanders, the Lions' all-time reception leader, who has been in and out of the lineup with injuries but probably doesn't choreograph the boogie as well as Hill anyway. The second half saw a total reversal of roles. Payton ran 43 yards on the second play of the half and displayed a new talent to go with his 2,000-yard pace rushing statistics. Payton's 75-yard touchdown reception was part of a 17-point third quarter for the Bears that blew the game open, and his 8-yard touchdown run gave him 137 for the day. 1,541 for the year, and finished the scoring in a 31-14 Chicago victory. Chicago guards Noah Jackson and Reeve Sori don't boogie as well as David Hill either, but their Ginger and Fred routine was much more satisfying than Hill's, for theirs was a victory dance. Out in San Francisco, the 49ers and Saints weren't battling to stay close to first. They met to settle who might finish last in the NFC West Division. And early in the game, it appeared New Orleans might catch San Francisco and tie them for third place. Clarence Chapman's 92-yard kickoff return was part of a 17-3 Saint lead, but the 49ers were not without long-range lightning themselves. Wilbur Jackson rushed for 190 yards on just 16 carries, including this 80-yarder that set up a field goal, and 34 and 1-yard touchdown runs that brought San Francisco into a 17-17 tie. With no time left, Ray Wersching's 42-yard field goal gave the 49ers a 20-17 victory. Just a few weeks ago, Wersching beat these same Saints 10-7 in overtime, and the two San Francisco victories have given the 49ers a chance to finish at 500, while probably dooming New Orleans to last place in the division. Viva la différence! In Denver, the Broncos and Colts were not concerned with the bottom of a division ladder. They met to see who would be on the top rung of the entire league ladder. With touchdown passes from Craig Morton to wide receivers Jack Dolbin and Rick Upchurch, number 80, the Broncos kicked up a 14-3 lead. But Burt Jones, who threw 20 of his 27 completions to running backs Don McCauley and Lydell Mitchell, number 26, brought the Colts back. Mitchell's touchdown cut the Denver lead to 14-13. And in the fourth quarter, Jones nickeled and dimed the Colts to the Denver 30-yard line when the Orange Crush turned the game around. Instead of going ahead, the Colts fell further behind on Tom Jackson's 73-yard interception return, the longest in Bronco history. But more important, this touchdown and a later TD gave Denver a 27-13 victory. And with a 10-1 record, the best in the NFL, the Broncos stand alone at the top of the National Football League.